Hello. This is the second in a series of short Divrei Torah. Everyone's most welcome to listen, but they are intended primarily for those who are not yet able to join us in person back at shul. This week we're going to read Matos and Menashe, together the longest reading from a single Sefer Torah. And it's the second of the readings of the 3 weeks. And Bnei Soscha, one of the early Hasidic writers, points out that the parshas we read at this time of the year focus on the land, our attitude towards the land, and sometimes our ambivalence towards the land. And one such example of ambivalence appears near the end of Matos, the first of the 2 parshas. And you know the story. They're in the Transjordan, waiting to enter the land. And the tribes of Reuven and Gad notice that it's a fertile place and they want to stay there. And they approach Moshe and they say, "We want to stay here. Will that be okay?" And Moshe gets very upset with them. He says, "Are you going to allow your brethren to enter the land, to fight for you, and you're going to stay here?" And a negotiation takes place. And when they agree that they will settle their families and property in the Transjordan, and then they will join the rest of the people to fight to take the land, and only then return to the Transjordan, the deal is sealed and Moshe agrees. But there's an anomaly that everyone has noticed. Vayitein lohem Moshe livnei Gad livnei Reuven, and Moshe then allocated to the tribe of Gad and the tribe of Reuven, and then he says, V'lachatzi shevet Menashe ben Yosef, and to half of the tribe of Menashe son of Yosef, the area of Sichon and Og, which are the lands that were captured in the Transjordan. Why does the half tribe of Menashe make an appearance here? They were not part of the original request. One of the great questions. Here are a couple of possible answers. The Ramban Nachmanides in the mid-13th century, he says it's a question of space. The area is too large for just 2 tribes to settle. There's going to be a concern if there are areas that are unpopulated, and it was about the right space for one half of a tribe. Purely pragmatic, I suppose, a military tactic to ensure that there weren't spaces which were liable to attack because they were unpopulated. A very, very simple explanation. It doesn't really explain why Menashe. There is a more midrashic explanation which sees Menashe as the architect of distress in the time of the story with the brothers. Menashe, the original Menashe, is understood to be the agent of Yosef when he goes and falsely accuses the brothers of stealing the cup, and at the end of Parshas Miketz, which you read at Hanukkah time, and he causes his uncles to tear their garments in anguish, and as a result there's a sense of incompleteness that must reflect on the tribe of Menashe. This is a midrashic attempt to try to explain why the tribe of Menashe is allocated this land rather than any other tribe. But I'm quite taken with an approach by the Netziv, Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, who is writing in Volozhin in Litter towards the end of the 19th century. He points out that Menashe have a very particular role. They are described as scribes and sages. Moshe's real concern is that if you separate Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven from the rest of the Jewish people, they will gradually develop their own religious systems. They will become distant from the locus of spirituality in Jerusalem. They will not have teachers, they will not have leaders, and eventually they will become a separate people with a separate religion with no obvious connection to the other 9.5 tribes. And so Moshe takes the tribe of scholars, Menashe, and divides them. Some of them will have to live in the Transjordan to ensure that the rest of the people are connected to the Torah, to its rules, to its lifestyle, and therefore ensure that the community remains together. Of course, as a pragmatic, once you have one half of a tribe, then there's going to be constant family needs to cross the boundary, cross the Jordan, in order to maintain those relationships. And so, while there are many other explanations, I'm very enamoured of these 3. A simple explanation from the Ramban that there's too much space for 2 tribes and we need to fill up the space to avoid a military problem. One is a midrashic approach to the role of Menashe in history as a divisive figure, and as a result he is divided. And the third one I prefer is to say that Menashe represents the ability of a community to hold together, that no matter where it lives, no matter how disparate people are, the Torah always has to be the common feature. Wishing you good Shabbos and sei gesund und stark.